Homeschooling. An increasing number of Canadians have decided that homeschooling, as opposed to public schooling, is the best for their children. It's a method of education that is debated and criticized, and honestly, I have been one of those critics. I have also only been through public school. Frankly, my criticisms are, when I look at them objectively, educated guesses at best. I owe it to myself and to those that are homeschooled to investigate what homeschooling is really like, and re-examine my criticisms of it. One of the main criticisms I held against homeschooling was accountability, or the lack thereof. Parents can teach whatever they want, regardless of the curriculum that public schools are beholden to. Well, looking into it, it's not fair to say that there is no accountability. In Canada, provinces have rules regarding homeschooling. Ontario, for example, has some detailed and strict rules regarding registration and grounds for investigation if there's reason to believe the child is not receiving adequate instruction. British Columbia has similar regulations and also offers distributed learning programs, which is most easily described as public school at home. Responsibilities are similar in the rest of Canada as well, but I was quite impressed with the required responsibilities in my own province of Saskatchewan. Here, homeschools are required to provide an educational outline, annual reports, portfolios, and meet with ministry representatives. In fact, there's a whole range of responsibilities that hold homeschool accountable. But, says my inner critic, I'm from a place where homeschooling accountability is low, or where it's easy to get around these regulations. What about that point? Well, that is a good point. But is that a point against homeschooling, or weak regulations? And if it's a point against regulations, and these regulations were fixed, what happens to that point? Well, says my inner critic again, they still aren't professional teachers. They still don't know what to do. True, but there are resources out there. In fact, ministry websites and the internet post resources for parents to use. And it's not just resources about subject matter, but resources about learning styles, assessment strategies, and other education-related material. Also, it's worth noting that the National Home Education Research Institute did a study showing that the educational level of the parents and the educational achievement of their children was not negatively linked in that regard. One of the main goals of education is to teach children to become lifelong learners, giving them the skills they need to learn for themselves. If children are homeschooled with this principle in mind, they should do just fine. If not, well, that brings us back to the arguments about accountability. One thing I can tell you, as an educator, I can only dream of teaching in the classroom setting that homeschooling offers. With only a handful of students, I can zone in on individual needs, easily tailor assignments to my students' strengths, and I'd have incredible freedom to teach how I want. In a way, I'm jealous. But there is another big argument coming. What about socialization? Homeschooled students are isolated. They don't get to socialize like public school students do. Well, homeschooling parents know about this too, and many prepare for it. There are homeschool events, where different homeschooled students get together to socialize. Not to mention that homeschooling has increased flexibility when it comes to field trips that also provide opportunities to socialize. Sure, they might not have the public school experience that most Canadians share with each other, and may be left out in that regard, though some homeschooling parents say that it is this public school experience they aren't exactly excited about. Now wait a minute, public school was great for me. Well, it was great for me too, but what about the people it wasn't great for, or wouldn't be great for? What many parents who choose to homeschool their children talk about is not just the advantages of homeschooling, but the disadvantages that they see in public schooling, like overcrowding, too distant from home, hostile environment, underfunded, teachers that don't care, and a one-size-fits-all curriculum. Now, some of these criticisms are overblown, and not true for all schools, but for many homeschooling parents, it is the perception of public schools, and frankly, they aren't totally wrong. During my investigation, I found out what actually bothered me about homeschooling. It wasn't the homeschooling itself. It was the idea that public schooling was somehow not good enough. You see, I believe in public education. I believe that it is the most important thing a society can provide itself. It's why I'm becoming a teacher. By examining homeschooling, what I've really seen is how public schooling doesn't meet some people's needs. So, do I think we should make homeschooling the norm? No. What I want instead is for public school to be seen as more than the bare minimum form of education. I want to take the best parts of homeschooling and bring that into the public schools. I want an education system that is flexible enough that homeschooling and public schooling are not seen as opposing arguments, but part of a single, solid education system that can meet the needs of everyone. A bit of a lofty goal, but one I think we need to reach for.